Good evening. My name is Samantha Lauer Bogard, and my partner entrepreneur was G&E Partners of Spring Lake, North Carolina. G&E Partners was founded by Diana Potts on January 10, 2013 to answer the demand of environmental products to the United States government. Mrs. Potts also founded G&E Advisors, which helps small businesses looking to do business with the government. The scope of the project was to gather information about the feasibility of a waste-to-energy plant near a large military installation and attempt to meet the net zero requirements designed by the government. The U.S. Department of Defense spent $15 billion in fiscal year 2010 and increased to $17 billion in 2011 on energy alone, making it the largest consumer of energy for the U.S. government. As the DoD recognizes, there's a strategic advantage to creating a military installation that is completely self-sufficient in terms of energy dependence and waste disposal. In 2008, the DoD and the Department of Energy created a joint initiative to manage the energy used by the military and issues concerning security. A task force was created to investigate the possibility of creating what are known as net zero installations. The upside down triangle on the left illustrates the net zero hierarchy utilizing reduction, repurposing, recycling and composting, energy recovery, and disposal. As you can see, disposal is the lowest of the options for the net zero hierarchy and therefore not the greatest focus. The objectives of these net zero military installations include producing high energy to support the installations throughout the year, reduce, reuse, and recover waste, limit the consumption of freshwater resources and returns water back to the same watershed, and eliminate solid waste and reduce consumption. Net zero installations will be accomplished through a systematic framework which addresses energy, waste, and water on all installations while balancing other site priorities such as mission, cost, and security. The Army is piloting 5 net zero waste installations, 5 net zero energy installations, 5 net zero water installations, and 2 complete net zero installations by 2020. With 25 net zero installations hopefully by 2030. In the box on the right, there is a list of the military installations chosen for the net zero initiative, with Fort Bliss and Fort Carson as the spearheads for the net zero installations. After the initial pilot program was announced, the 2 spearhead military installations started to investigate different alternatives to reach their net zero status. These alternatives were the construction and operation of a waste and energy plant, similar to the one being described here. Construction and operation of a biomass plant, which will convert animal and plant waste into energy. The use of photovoltaic technology, such as solar panels, for energy production. The expansion of the existing reclaimed water system. Construction and operation of wind turbines, implementing future renewable energy development within net zero footprints identified by the Army, and maximum conservation and reuse. Both bases chose to maximize confirmation and start reusing their waste as the lowest cost alternative initially. Fort Bliss has since started investigating sites for a waste and energy plant located along the western boundary of the base. However, the main focus of their efforts is concerned with creating a solar panel farm on the firing ranges of Fort Bliss. However, none of these alternatives can proceed at this point due to a lack of private funding and a low budget within the United States Army. G&E Partners saw this initiative as a business opportunity and created the JV Enterprise Initiative to investigate military installations excluded from the initial pilot program for the establishment of a waste-to-energy plant. Net Zero Energy Installation Initiative from the JV Team Net Zero Enterprise will create an energy package that will meet the expectations and needs of the specific military installation of concern. Using existing technologies, JV Team will leverage proprietary knowledge and experience to provide product and services required to positively step toward implementing an optimal energy solution. The ultimate goal of the JV Team Net Zero Enterprise is the successful implementation of energy savings, waste and elimination, and reliable energy products for their clients. South Carolina and North Carolina have 8 military installations, which include Fort Jackson, Fort Bragg, and Shaw Air Force Base, making this an ideal location to begin implementing the waste-to-energy facility. A facility site was identified outside of Fort Jackson in Lexington, South Carolina. By converting some of the 240,000 tons of municipal solid waste generated by Fort Jackson annually to energy, the facility will host a 30-megawatt system towards making Fort Jackson a net zero installation, which converts 500 solid tons of waste into 20 to 25 megawatts of energy daily. The facility has already been designed according to the schematic shown here. Several technologies are going to be installed in the facility. These technologies include a plasma gasification module and the QCI PGS, which is an ultra clean power generation system. The QCI PGS uses a boiler, steam turbine, generator power generation system. Some of the components include a heat recovery system, a latent energy reclamation system, and a water purification system, as well as a wet electrostatic precipitator. However, after county officials requested a $270,000 road impact study, the JV team decided not to pursue a site near Fort Jackson any further. Instead, the company is scouting sites within Cumberland County to support Fort Bragg energy requirements. Regardless of the location, plant design will resemble the design here at PWC at a location on the PWC Rockfish site off of I-95. According to Mrs. Potts, the construction of the energy plant will require 12 acres of land, and this site will provide the space needed. Nearly $35 million in angel investment from the Dutch Retirement Fund has already been secured, which satisfies the private funding requirement for the project. Mrs. Potts is still working with the city manager and county manager to obtain the approval necessary to begin construction. Another key milestone was the identification of the viable construction site at the Rockfish site. Construction will require 12 acres of land and 2 to 3 years of lead time. The relationships with the Fort Bragg officials for project are necessary for project success were established, and information was obtained as to the feasibility and base requirements. These relationships include Melinda Harrington, who is the Director of Sustainable Energy on Fort Bragg, and Sidney Williamson, the Manager of Solid Waste on Fort Bragg. Revenue will be generated in the same method as traditional disposal and energy companies. In Cumberland County, solid waste removal is charged as an annual fee to the household of $48 on their tax bill. Energy costs charged to current customers for electricity from PWC is little more than 9 cents per kilowatt hour. The charge to Fort Bragg for their energy purchases will have to be 6 cents per kilowatt hour in order to be competitive. Instead of these revenues being paid to the traditional utility companies such as PWC, they'll be paid directly to the waste energy facility. Ms. Harrington stated in order to be considered for an energy supply on Fort Bragg, the cost must be competitive with the current rate of 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and the annual cost for the energy consumed on Fort Bragg is $44 million. That means that the waste-to-energy plant stands to earn $44 million in revenue annually from energy purchases from Fort Bragg alone. Within Fayetteville, the energy cost at 9 cents per kilowatt hour will equate to approximately $88 million annually in sales. Therefore, the waste-to-energy plant stands to earn $136 million annually in energy sales to the Fayetteville Municipal Fort Bragg. Revenue will also be generated through the collection of solid waste from Fayetteville homes as well as Fort Bragg. Fayetteville, North Carolina has 78,000 occupied households as of 2013, which will be charged a $48 annual fee for collection of solid waste. This results in an annual revenue of $3.757 million for Fayetteville collection. Fort Bragg has approximately 8,000 households on the base. Charging a similar $48 annual fee per household, this will result in an additional $384,000 in revenues annually. However, these figures are not considering other revenue streams, including the collection from commercial dwellings, dining halls, and other locations of human congregation. Therefore, revenues may be even higher than these projections. Projecting a 91% cost of goods expense, similar to that of PwC, it can be seen that the plant will generate approximately $12 million in profits annually on a conservative basis. Solid waste output of Fort Bragg may not be significant enough to support electrical needs. Fort Bragg only produces 24,500 tons of solid waste annually. Therefore, it is required that this base be supported by solid waste production from Fayetteville. More efficient technologies may already be in existence. For example, in Lancaster County, PA, there is a waste-to-energy plant that produces 4.4 billion megawatts of energy annually and costs $135 million to build. In Portland, Maine, there is a waste-to-energy facility that creates 100,000 megawatts of energy from 175,000 tons of solid waste and costs $93 million to build. This equates to 1.7 tons of solid waste processed per megawatt produced, which is more efficient than the 25 tons of solid waste processed per megawatt produced of the technology described here. Based upon the construction cost of these facilities, it can be estimated that the cost of the construction will be higher than $35 million. This is my business model canvas, which all sections have already been previously discussed. As you can see, the most important partners are the investors, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, economic developers, the Department of Energy, as well as the financial partners from the Dutch Retirement Fund. It is my recommendation that GE Partners follow these next steps in order to see the waste-to-energy plant in Fayetteville, North Carolina realized. The first step will be to ensure the approval of key community political leaders and government officials listed previously. This may be of the utmost importance because even if all other steps are completed, this project will be halted without approval. The bureaucratic requirements and approval can often be time-consuming and will need plenty of lead time prior to the proposed groundbreaking. And the next step will be to investigate the already mentioned waste-to-energy plants and their technologies to see if these models may be more profitable and efficient. In the event that they are a better option, project management needs to be open to abandoning their preconceived concepts and create a new plan centralized implementing these systems. After a true plant design and technology utilization has been determined, pro forma statements will need to be generated based upon the construction costs, terms of the lease agreement, administrative expenses, projected revenues, and other financially relevant information. The creation of these financial documents will make approvals and further financial backing easier to obtain. They will also provide a framework for the budget going forward in order to remain profitable. The highly conservative sales projection of $136 million from solid waste collection and the sale of the produced energy as detailed earlier. It could be expected based upon PwC's expense rate that this plant will average $123 million in expenses. The JV team will need to determine if a $35 million investment will be sufficient to build the waste-to-energy plant described here. Based upon my averages of waste-to-energy construction cost and implementation, the costs associated are actually closer to roughly $100 million. With this estimate in place, the budget for construction should be created and contractors secured. The determined technology will need to be purchased, whether it be the technology described above or those currently used at other waste-to-energy facilities. Solid waste collection trucks will also need to be purchased to service Fort Bragg and Fayetteville. The JV team will need to secure the site for construction once the approval is finalized, and the budget will need to be adhered. With a 2 to 3 year lead time for construction, the JV team will have time to hire and train all necessary employees, including those migrating from PwC. As you can see, this is a viable investment opportunity and a great opportunity for Fort Bragg to become a part of the Net Zero initiative. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.